everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ruslan, and I'll be introducing our speakers today. Today's webcast is focused on monitoring APIs to guarantee a seamless customer experience. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out that you can ask questions at any time using the Q&A box, and you can also find useful resources in the resource list. With that being said, I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have two great speakers today, Isaac Hepworth, who's the product manager on Apigee, and Luke Mercier, who's the global systems manager at Urban Sciences. With that said, Isaac, could you take it away?
Thanks, Ruslan. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here talking about API monitoring with Luke. Just quickly before we get started, we're going to be covering this agenda here. We're going to talk a little bit about API monitoring in general, its importance increasingly as businesses become more digital. I want to talk about how the Apigee solution differs from a traditional synthetic monitoring solution based on probers. And then a little bit more about the API monitoring capabilities generally. And I'm going to hand it to Luke, who will talk about his experience building out an API program with Apigee and using the monitoring products in particular. So we'll start with an observation. I think, in Apigee's history, we've never seen a time when APIs have become more mainstream. I think when Apigee began, it was not universally accepted. I think that API management was a thing that was needed. It was more of a sell, but by now, it's fairly uncontroversial. If you're running an API program, an API management solution is really something you should be looking at. And we see global enterprises around the world adopting APIs, pushing API programs, and digitally transforming their businesses. And I'm going to talk a little bit here about Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Now, Apigee has a number of large customers in the retail sector, a very common mode for retailers. For instance, if they have a mobile app, that mobile app is connected to APIs, it's querying inventory, it's making orders, and so on. And so Black Friday, Cyber Monday is a huge season for Apigee and Apigee customers. And 2018 was really a banner weekend for Apigee. Year over year, over this long weekend, we saw a 95% growth in API calls, a peak transactions per second of over 100,000. And through all of this, Apigee achieved 5 nines of availability. And there are a few things that these stats tell me. The first one is that APIs truly are becoming mainstream. This growth is really incredible. The second thing is Apigee's experience over this weekend running an operations center and making sure our customers' API stayed up. We used our own API monitoring product in that operations center, and we found that incredibly useful to get ahead of issues, help our customers get ahead of issues, and make sure that our own availability reached the service level that we could be truly proud of. And then the third thing that this tells me is there are real dollars flowing through APIs. This is retail traffic. This is retailers making money over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and they're doing that using APIs. And obviously the implications of that is that these things are absolutely critical. It's absolutely essential. You'll be losing revenue in many cases if these APIs go down, if you don't have full service continuity, if you can't offer high service levels. So I think that those three observations to me leap off of this slide. The increasing business criticality of APIs really leads to a few effects on API operations teams, and essentially to increase the pressure on those teams to maintain service continuity and high levels of service, to get ahead of issues, ideally identify and resolve API issues before customers even notice, and really move quickly, not just in terms of identifying issues, but diagnosing, triaging, debugging, and then resolving those issues. And as part of this, monitoring solution obviously is the key part of this. Now, there's two core approaches to monitoring. I think the commonest one, the one that people are most familiar with, goes by the name of synthetic monitoring or black box monitoring or probing. And this is essentially some automated process, perhaps globally distributed to get a regional view or a regional picture. Make synthetic API calls to check health, and it will be maybe pinging your service every minute, every 15 seconds, every 2 seconds, and repeatedly exercising the APIs in order to detect any issues. But such an approach has a number of shortcomings. You have limited information about API availability. You don't get any of the insides of what's causing any issues. You may detect a latency spike, you may detect a service outage, but you don't really get any insight from the inside of what's happening. Is it your target? Is it your authentication? Is it your API management solution itself that's causing the problem? You also have a limited ability to detect certain classes of issues. For instance, it could be that there's a 1% error rate with your API, but all of that error rate is going to your most important customer. That's obviously not a good situation to be in, but it would be very difficult for that situation to be detected using synthetic monitoring. White box monitoring, on the other hand, which we'll talk about, will be able to detect precisely those types of conditions, which would be very, very difficult to configure probers to detect. And then the third point I'd like to point out about synthetic monitoring is the challenge is that when an issue is detected, there's then the exercise of toggling between various logs, the use of various systems to correlate timestamps, to correlate the information, to try and figure out, okay, our prober is seeing this. Now can we look up the logs corresponding to the same time period on the server? Now can we look up the logs and corresponding to the same period on the perhaps the back end or downstream systems? And it makes it difficult, particularly under pressure, particularly maybe 2 a.m. on a Sunday over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, to drill down and precisely diagnose that. There's a lot of kind of swivel chair integration involved there. The Apigee approach to monitoring, we sit in the traffic path of the APIs which we manage, and that gives us this unique opportunity to get this longitudinal view, to get across the API request lifecycle, a total view of what's happening, and that enables us to detect, are we seeing failures associated with maybe just one or two particular developer apps or clients? Are we seeing authentication failures? Are we seeing failures within the proxy system itself? Are there gateway errors? Do we see issues with backends or targets? We can track the latency, the internal latency of the API management platform compared to the target latency, the latency of the backend API itself, and really give you that end-to-end view from the client all the way through to the target. And again, this opportunity is afforded to Apigee because we sit directly in the traffic path and can observe the traffic, make empirical observations, and provide customer value on top of that. So I think, there's really two parts when I think about monitoring. There's two core journeys. And I think, journey number one is setting up alerts, configuring a system to which APIs are important, where are your thresholds for deciding if something's going wrong, configuring the system. And then journey number two is you're woken up at 4 a.m. on a Sunday by one of these alerts coming through, and you have to click through and quickly find out what's going on. And one of the emphases building on when we were building the API monitoring approach in Apigee, I think one of the approaches we took was this emphasis on how do we really give an API operator maximal context when they get an alert, when there's something going wrong. How do we enable them the best in order to, when they're sleepy, when they're maybe not a domain expert, when they're maybe not even familiar with the API itself, how do we give them all the information they need to triage, to diagnose, to debug, and to resolve the issue. And I'm going to show some of these features of the system when I come later to a demo. Before I get there, though, I want to hand over to my partner here, Luke. He's going to tell you a little bit about his experience building out an API program at Urban Science and how he thinks of API monitoring. Luke, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Isaac. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody this afternoon and this morning, depending on where you're at. I'm going to talk about our experience with Apigee and specifically API monitoring and why it is so important to us and, more importantly, more important to our customers as well. Before I get into that, though, a little bit about me. I'm a global systems manager here at Urban Science. I've been writing software for the internet for the past 19 years, back when it was just HTML, and that's all we had. Been here at Urban Science for about 9 years, and I lead the platform development and operations team for our customer marketing intelligence cloud, which is basically our API program here at Urban Science. Been a long time coming, getting to this point of our journey in API evolution, but we're making great strides for sure. A little bit about our company, so you kind of get a feel for where we're at. We're a bunch of scientists. We're a bunch of math geeks and computer nerds that hang around and try to figure out how to solve our clients' problems. And we do that by trying to figure out what the real problems are and use empirical data to help us drive those decisions. And we do that as partners with our clients. So our partners count on us to make sure the things that we're providing for them are up and are running, and that we're the ones that are bringing the solutions as opposed to answering their problems. And because we have that culture here at Urban Science, as we evolved our API program from nothing, 3 years ago at Urban Science, we had 0 APIs. We were all enterprise-level installed solutions. We had a few web reporting applications out there. But we have this huge mass of data, and we needed to figure out a good way to make it available to the marketplace, while also listening to our clients and helping them figure out what it is that they need. Again, a very client-focused approach to what it is that we're doing. We're a global company, so we've been in over 40 years of operations. We're pretty much everywhere. We're in over 25,000 dealerships that are using our systems. We're in over 100 countries. We got 20 offices. There's over 900 of us all over the globe, and we do pride ourselves. We have one of the largest business-to-business client satisfaction scores in the industry because we use that science to put all of our clients' needs first. A little bit here about where we're at. We live and grow with our clients, and our API programs are living and growing with our clients as well. Most of our traffic today coming through Apigee is oriented to North America. We do see traffic patterns with Apigee's monitoring and their reporting statistics of people from outside the U.S. coming into our platform, which is exciting when we start to see that because that opens up new possible opportunities for business and expanding our program and our platform. So that's kind of who we are. And next I'm going to take you guys through what we do with our APIs and more broadly what we do as an organization as well. And again, it's all about science with us. It's all about solving those mission-critical challenges that drive market share and profitability for our customers and win their loyalty and make sure that their customers are loyal. So because we're in the B2B business, our customers also have customers. And so when our customers can't get to the things that they want to get to or can't get the answers that they need, people become unhappy. So our goal is to make sure we solve those problems with as happy as customers as we possibly can get. And we do that because we have a pretty unique vantage point. So with all of the content that we have, all of the applications, everything that we hold, all the insights and data and all the science that we have, we're able to really have a unique, visible view of the entire automotive industry's operations, from network planning to dealer operations to aftermarket sales to marketing campaigns and attribution campaigns on those marketing events. So it's really that holistic view of a dealership and of an original equipment manufacturer that really gives us a very unique vantage point. And the vantage point is driven by, like I said, the network, where those retailers and where those dealerships lie. We optimize those dealerships across that entire network, and then we enhance their marketing efforts with our digital ecosystem driven by our API platform. The API platform that we drive all that marketing know-how with is our C4 Marketing Intelligence Cloud. Customer to the fourth. Our to the fourth power is a proprietary thing that we put in everything we do. It's people, process, data, and technology. So those four underlying themes outline everything that we do. In our Marketing Intelligence Cloud, we have targeting capabilities, personalization capabilities, and attribution capabilities. Targeting capabilities, selecting the right person for the right offer at the right time, at the right velocity, at the right cadence. Then personalizing those offers to make sure that they're hitting to the need of the person, and then attributing how successful those targeting and personalization campaigns were. We do all of that in real time through our API platforms, and we do it to empower marketers to attract and convert their shoppers. And we do it at a very, very low cost per sale, which just drives dynamic, targeted, high experiences for our shoppers, which then drives and increases the bottom line for our OEMs, which obviously increases their market share, which then everybody wins in that point. So that's kind of what we do here at Urban Science. I know I went through it really quickly, but if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Next, I'm going to get into specifically our API program that drives our Customer Marketing Intelligence Cloud. So when we took on the journey about 3 years ago to say, hey, we're going to build this Marketing Intelligence Cloud because we need to make all of this really great data available, the organization had a problem. Our clients had a problem, and we needed to find a solution. The solution that we found and started the journey with was API. So application programming interfaces were key. We needed to open the power of our data, and we needed to do it in such a way that we could build a platform that would support and build other solutions. We didn't want to build one solution for one client to solve one problem. We wanted to build a platform that could be used to build the solutions to solve the problems, powered by the data that the APIs expose and let us have access to. So exposing our data to a wide spectrum of consumers, both internal and external consumers, was very key for us. So having a large global footprint with over 900 experts, there's a lot of people who knew we had data internally, but they didn't know how to get to it. And our external partners, same thing. They knew we had this data, but we didn't really know how to get to it. And so our goal for the APIs was, let's figure out a way to make it easy. Make it easy for our internal consumers and our external consumers to get to that data, minimize large file transmissions, and in huge processing events. So how can we take a very large data set, make it highly available, highly scalable, and stop moving around large files and having to eat day-long processing events every time we wanted to use data to learn something to help solve one of our client mission-critical problems.
I want to call out something. I mean, what you just described, I think, is a really common pattern that Apigee sees with its customers. So essentially you have an internal digital asset which has value. You have this data set, and you can make that data set, you can make that value available to both external and internal partners via APIs. And I think that's a pattern that Apigee sees very, very often. And businesses identifying some source of value they have in digital form internally, and then using APIs as the mechanism to leverage that value and make it available externally. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but I thought that what you just described was a really canonical deployment of APIs.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, our directors approached us in the engineering department exactly with that, right? We have this digital asset. How do we get it to the world? And our engineering department, we took a step back and we said, APIs. I mean, that's the right way to do it, right? It seemed obvious to us, but to the business, it wasn't very obvious. And the challenges that we had to tackle and figure out how to make that data available via an API program continued and led us down the evolutionary path that got us to why we're talking about this today, right? I mean, our consumers of those APIs. So once we decided we wanted APIs, then we had to figure out, okay, well, who are our consumers? And our consumers ended up being a lot of internal data providers and external data providers, as well as internal development teams and external development teams. So our marketing intelligence cloud is driven by lots of different data from lots of different providers internally and externally. And then it's worked with, it's matched. We do a lot of proprietary science and technology in it. We do just a lot of stuff to make sure all that data is available. And it flows into our API platform through APIs in an unstructured way. We then work with it, and then we expose it back on the outside for the development teams, both internal and external, to consume via the API layer to answer the questions that they're asking.
With that, it sounds like you have a large set of internal data, very large amounts of data, and a key part of what you're doing here is really distilling that data down to the key, very targeted, precise elements that you want to offer via your APIs. It's no longer just ship gigabytes of data to your clients. You're doing the hard work of distilling that down to the key parts which really make a difference to the consumers here.
Absolutely. We take terabytes of data and we get them down to kilobytes of data to answer questions. Because APIs are so powerful, especially when you use them the right way, quote unquote, the right way, right? When you're using, lots of calls but very small payloads, we take all that we take terabytes and terabytes of data, and we distill it down into a simple ask-answer type of a REST protocol, and we do that with Apigee, right? When we started the journey of exposing APIs, we started with, okay, let's figure out who our customers are. We'll make some APIs. And then we needed to figure out, okay, what are we actually how are we going to actually deliver this content? And we went through a pretty exhaustive decision analysis requirements process to determine what we needed. And we knew from day one that we required proper, mature API management capabilities. We started this journey about 3 years ago, and API management was relatively new. There was no one around Urban Science that had heard of it until we brought it up from my department. But we knew that we needed proper API management. We did not want to re-engineer the wheel. We required easy access to build, maintain, develop, and make available via productization our APIs. Whether we chose to monetize those at a later date or whether we wanted to make them available for free for internal customers, we needed all of that flexibility. And that's why we chose Apigee specifically. We didn't want to recreate the security layer. We didn't want to recreate all of the benefit that we get from Apigee. We view Apigee here at Urban Science as a very strategic partner because my team would still be writing the security layer for our APIs more than likely if we tried to write it ourselves, just because it can be so complex. And we were able to get Apigee up and running and handle all of our security and very, very quickly. And that made all the world a difference in terms of our adoption of the APIs. So as we began moving down that journey of API management with the Marketing Intelligence Cloud, we started to take a look at those benefits of Apigee. We knew that full-service API management for access, authorization, analytics, and auditing for our entire Marketing Intelligence Cloud was going to be key. When we started this exercise 3 years ago, we started with 2 APIs. Those 2 APIs were data acceptance APIs, and they opened up the door to start getting data from other static data sources into our Marketing Intelligence Cloud. And over the last 3 years, We've grown that to over 650 published APIs, both internal, external, and administration APIs. Similar to what Isaac was talking about synthetic monitoring, we've got a block of those that just kind of keep doing their work to make sure things are working. But that wasn't enough. We needed more in terms of visibility. When we started our journey with Apigee, like I said, we started with like 2 APIs, and I thought it was a great day when we had 100 transactions in a single day. And then we hit another milestone where we hit 1,000 in a day, and that was cool. And then we had 10,000, and now we're doing 11.5 million plus per month. So over the last 3 years, our adoption was very hockey puck-like or hockey stick-like in nature, where it was kind of a slow adoption. And then once people kind of got into it, they saw that we could get people onboarded super quick. Taking advantage of our Apigee developer portal, we were able to publish our external APIs, our Swagger documents, and all of our contracts, and really give people that self-serve model. The adoption really started to take off. And not only did the adoption take off, but what we also learned along the way was people started using our APIs in manners that we hadn't really expected. So they created new programs and new solutions off of the availability of the data that were not conceived of originally, which then informed new development, informed new requirements, which then grew our portfolio. And that continues to happen on a monthly basis around here, where we're continuing to discover new things that the power of that data unlocks for us.
And I think on that point, Luke, again, I think you've hit upon a key point there. And I always think of the power of a platform. You can think of the power of a platform. One of the key attributes is this unimagined use case. People are doing things with your platform you never imagined or thought about or specifically built for. There's co-innovation happening there. There's innovation happening outside of your core business by developers using your APIs in new and interesting ways, which perhaps you didn't anticipate, you didn't build for, but there's value creation happening nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely, and it happens every single day, Isaac. The reality is we have a joke around here that when we publish a new API and we productize it and we make it available, no one's going to use it the way we intended, but everybody's going to use it for some other purpose. And we always laugh about it when we see the end result, because some of our partnerships, we actually get to see the end result of how they use our APIs. And it's always very interesting for my engineering and my ops team to see our data at work when they're like, I did not think that was going to be able to, you came up with a great idea. I did not envision that, which is always entertaining.
Absolutely.
So, moving and continuing our journey down into the Marketing Intelligence Cloud, the guys at Apigee and Google here, they released their API monitoring capability. I'm not sure exactly when, but we stumbled upon it and discovered it, and oh my goodness, my ops team and myself, we just fell in love with it. And API monitoring matters so much to us because I'm a big fan of the Bird Box movie, but my team operating blind is just not efficient. And prior to API monitoring, we were essentially blind. We had synthetic monitoring in place. We have several other monitoring utilities that monitor our platform, but having that API monitoring in the traffic pattern to give us that real-time visibility, and it began to allow my team to respond proactively to problems before they became system outages. And we do that, and we're able to respond in real time based on real-time usage, and we can make those critical decisions about platform capabilities and scalability in real time. Prior to API monitoring, having that level of visibility, we were always reactionary. So again, Bird Box, great movie, right? But no one wants to walk around and live their world blind. We're running 11.5 million transactions a month through this thing, making sure that our customers are getting what they need. And we're asking, prior to API monitoring, we were asking my team to do it basically with their eyes closed, as though they were, trying to avoid the creatures in the movie. Prior to API monitoring, we were always reactionary. So we would end up knowing that there was an outage with a client API when they would tell us potentially. Now, we don't have to do that. Now we know 5 over 5, that's our motto around here, 500 errors over 5 minutes is a reaction, right? So we've got to respond to that. We got alerts that get fired up. We trigger those alerts, and then we take action on the playbooks, and we solve the problem before it becomes a system outage. Prior to API monitoring, we had to guess when traffic would spike, right? Isaac talked about Black Friday and Cyber Monday spikes across Apigee as a platform as a whole. In our space, we see a lot of spikes around the Labor Day and the Memorial Day sale weekends. And prior to having API monitoring, we would guess. Now, we see those traffic patterns spike. My IT team, we scale the platform, we handle the traffic, we scale it down when we're done. We move on. We do that all in real time now because we can see what's actually going on.
I think is key, and the audience would be interested in. You described 5 over 5 as a rubric for monitoring, which I think is a really great and memorable rubric. This is 500 errors over 5 minutes. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
And that's a fairly sensitive alert, but I guess at that level, you can really, get ahead of things, detect things before they become massive error spikes.
Exactly. And our API platform is serving clients that are utilizing the APIs in such a way that they're very shared. So one product of our API might be driving like 4 or 5 different applications. So when we see a 5 over 5 error, generally it's impacting many of our clients, but our end users aren't experiencing, like the same guy's not experiencing a 500 error outage over 5 minutes. It's usually thousands of people and only a few of them are getting a 500 error. Generally they recover okay, but when they don't, we're able to figure out what that root cause is before it becomes a 1,500 errors all at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think I just wanted to call attention to that. I think it's great as a best practice. And 5 over 5 is such a great, memorable rubric. I wanted to just point people to that.
Excellent. With my operations team here monitoring it, we've continued to evolve and grow our capabilities. The API monitoring solution, it sits on our large operation screens. It's on our desktops. It's on one of our side monitors. We all operate multiple monitors like everybody in the world, right? One of our monitors is dedicated to our monitoring utilities, and my team lives in the API monitoring solution 1 hour at a time with real-time updates flipped on so that we can see it, right? So my operations team a lot of times doesn't even wait for the alert to come in. When they start to see, alerts in that upper right-hand box or traffic patterns start to shift down, they jump right into that investigation mode and they look and they see what's going on. And Isaac's going to demo all this in real time for you guys here in just a minute. But that's where my ops team lives. And it's kind of crazy, right? Because it's all a real-time system. There's millions of transactions flowing through it. And my team lives here an hour at a time over the course of their day. A couple of my team members' full-time job is just basically keep this thing up and running and watch and make sure and respond before our clients tell us what's going on. That wraps up my portion of what I wanted to share with everybody in terms of how we've kind of evolved from a large data set through API definition all the way out to what has now been a 3-year journey for my team and our company, interfacing and capitalizing and leveraging Apigee's tooling to really unlock the power of our data. And now I'm going to kick back over to Isaac, and he's going to take you guys through, I believe, a demo, right, Isaac?
Absolutely going to get the demo. I do see some questions coming in here, and I wanted to get to those. Maybe we can answer a couple of those before we get to the demo. I got a question here. Why pay for a product when the same monitoring could be achieved using open source tools? I mean, I think that's a good question. In this context, Apigee offers a full service API management platform, and API monitoring actually comes with that. And so API monitoring is bundled with the core enterprise edge feature. And so, you're not paying extra for this product here. This is essentially a feature of the API management platform. So Sunil, I hope that answers your question.
And Isaac, if I could just add one more thing onto that for you. So we chose API management from a trusted partner because a lot of our APIs, we do have a lot of sensitive data flowing through it. And we just don't really trust that open source space very much. We needed a trusted partner to make sure our data was secure.
Got it. Yeah, that's great to hear, Luke. Thank you. And then another question here, I think on the same vein, why not use Prometheus, Grafana, monitor responses, and then look at responses and other? Absolutely, you can do that. And there's, I think Luke mentioned that they're doing synthetic monitoring too, where you are sending probes, you're looking at the responses you get, and you're alerting based on that. But, as I talked to earlier in the presentation, I don't think that that's enough in many cases. And actually, having a system which sits in the traffic path itself is able to get that much richer insight into what's going on and provide that much greater value from the alerting. Luke, is that your experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. Apigee's tooling and their API monitoring is one of the tools in our toolbox. We have a vast amount of additional monitoring, both homegrown and third-party acquired, for the overall API platform as a whole. API monitoring from Apigee, like I said, it's one of the best tools in the toolbox, but it is just one of the tools in the toolbox.
Absolutely. And then just to cover off a couple of extra questions I see coming in here, this is an out-of-the-box feature. And so if you buy Apigee Edge Public Cloud Enterprise Edition, our flagship API management solution, this comes with it. API monitoring ships with that product. It's a feature area that just became GA as part of the product last October. It was in beta and alpha prior to that last year. So this is shipped with the core product here, just to cover off another couple of questions. With that, I am going to go into a brief demo, and then I'll come back, see if there are any more questions, and then we'll wrap up. So let me see if I can just share my screen here, and this might actually give more context as to how the product fits in. So hopefully you can all see my screen here. This is obviously where you land. You first log into it to Apigee Edge, and so I get to see the specs, proxies, products, and so on. I'm going to go to Analyze here and click on API Monitoring, and I'm looking here at an internal organization for Apigee, which we use for a lot of testing. We actually use it for a lot of testing of the API monitoring product itself. So I'm going to select the production environment here, and I get to see some stats overall. I get to see total traffic. I get to see my error rate, which looks pretty abysmal at the moment, but I'm not too worried about this. It's the test org that we use specifically for producing spikes and errors and generally testing the API monitoring products and exercising it as we develop it. So you see a latency view here, and then alerts at the top. And I'm going to talk a little bit about alerts to begin with. And as I said earlier, I think of two core journeys here, two core things, which I think we spend a lot of attention on in the product, really making sure that these address the core needs. And item number one is, how do you tell Apigee what your thresholds are, what you're interested in monitoring? And so Luke mentioned 505 as the rubric that they use. You can totally set that up. But here you'll see a traditional view for creating an alert. And so we'll give this an alert name. Let's call it demo alert for the production environment. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm interested in status code 5xx, so the server error here. Let's say the rate is greater than 50%, and I wouldn't suggest you using this threshold in real life here, but because this is a very error-y environment, you'll see in a minute why I'm setting this at 50%. And I'm going to say, for this, actually, I'm interested in monitoring all the proxies across any of my regions here. So I have this condition here that I've told Apigee, here's a condition that I'd be interested in knowing about if my 5xx rate is greater than 50% for 5 minutes across all my proxies and regions. But I can actually click here and see, using historical data, when this alert would have been fired, is this an appropriate threshold, and so on. So I'll click this here, and you'll actually see that the error rate for this organization I'm looking at is very, very high. It's a test organization. This is by design. But you can see a really handy view here showing you exactly when and how often and how much this threshold was violated by. How noisy would this alert be? How many alerts would you be getting if you configured it this way? I always find this view very, very useful, both to validate what am I doing, but also to tune the thresholds I'm using against real-world historical data, which you can view empirically. So I can add multiple conditions here. I can select to create a report, and many customers find this very, very useful. We've seen a great increase in the use of custom reports following the launch of monitoring. But using these conditions here, this is actually something which you can create a report on, run that report repeatedly, and have that as part of your overall view, historically looking at how your organization's performance is. And then notifications here. This is another key piece. An alert condition has arisen. How would you like to become aware of that? And we certainly have customers who have plasma monitors up in their their NOC, their operations center, whatever it may be, with live updating dashboards, literally showing pages from the product here, which update in real time, showing alerts rising, maybe showing a tree map of your APIs and your traffic and where the errors are. But in this case, maybe I don't have something which is up on the screen all the time, and I actually want something to be sent to me. So I can select here, okay, I would like this thing delivered to Slack, to PagerDuty. We support webhooks. We have customers who actually feed these alerts via webhook into their existing service management solution. And you can set up multiple destinations for these alerts. You could use one into service management to ensure that follow-up from the thing is tracked, that the post-mortem is done, that the alert isn't lost. But at the same time, maybe you'll send a ping to Slack as well to let the team know. Playbook, I think, I talked a little bit earlier about, the flip side of this journey is, this alert fires, it sends you some information. There is an alert condition, something is going wrong. And Apigee's intent here is to really provide you with a product that gives you the most context, the most useful information to help a responder to that alert who is perhaps responding, bleary-eyed in the early hours of the morning. Maybe they're secondary on call. They don't know much about the system. We want to make sure that we have something here which really provides maximum context when an alert comes through. And so, for a given alert definition here, or any alert that you set up, you can actually link to an internal playbook, or you can write a paragraph of text explaining what you suggest operators do when this alert happens. And we've gotten great feedback on this. So this is a great place to start. The first thing you do, you get an alert, you click through the playbook, and you've got an immediate guide for, maybe diagnostic steps you might take and so on. You've got alert throttling, and the things that you would expect from a system which monitors and alerts you. So this is the alert side of things. The other side of things I mentioned is, the alert condition arises, the notification arrives, what do you do? And what you'll typically do is you'll actually be taken directly to a page where you can investigate, the current behavior. So if I look here, select 4 hours, let's select my prod environment, and these things will be, I'm going in not from an alert here. If you were clicking through from an alert condition, this thing would be pre-configured to show you things which are relevant to that alert. You can also use this just proactively in the absence of an alert, as I'm doing now. And what you see is these really powerful co-occurrence matrices here. And so, you can tabulate, if I select this bottom one, let's say, I'm going to come to that in a minute. So this matrix here is showing us, well, there's some hotspots here around, an invalid API key. And again, this is demonstrating the power of white box monitoring, that an invalid API key set of errors may be affecting one of your very, very important clients. It is desperately unlikely you would ever detect this error condition using synthetic monitoring. If you're doing probing, unless you're probing from all your important API keys, you're not going to see the errors which affect only some of them. So you can click on these hotspots here. We'll give you, details about what we think is happening, the organization, the proxy that's involved. We see here, we have the developer app is actually missing. That's probably something to do with the authentication failure. And you can actually click through to see the individual logs here, expand these, get details. We have the request message ID here, which can be used for tracing all the way from the front to the back end to the target of your API management product here. And so you have a whole ton of detail, which is going to be really helpful when you land on this page having responded to an alert. If I scroll down here, we have a few of these matrices here. These are configurable. And if I switch this to look at status code versus vtime, I can actually see that as well as these 401 errors that I'm seeing from the invalid API key, I'm also getting a bunch of 500 errors here. And so, again, I can click on a cell here. I can look at the distribution of the fault codes. And again, this is something which synthetic or black box API monitoring is not going to get you. You're going to get a status code. You're not going to get the internal details about the specific policy or the specific flow or the specific failure. But because the API management solution from Apigee sits in the traffic path, we have that insight and we can deliver that to you here. And we can see the distribution of fault codes related to this particular time period for the status code. Again, clicking through to logs, super simple to do. You have all of these at your fingertips here. Expand for details. You get the unique correlation ID, which will allow you to track this API call. If you do need to go to other systems to look at it, this is an ID that you can use to correlate the call path all the way through your systems here. And I find these matrices, I think, are incredibly powerful when investigating these things. And the product at Apigee, this API monitoring product, was built originally as an internal set of tools to help our own operations team. This is built from real-world experience of operating a production system and operating APIs in particular. All of Apigee Edge's features, yes, they have a UI. I'm looking at the UI now, but we have almost complete parity with an API service as well. And so, Apigee has great experience operating a production-grade API. The experience which we gained operating our own APIs, gave us the insights that we needed to put this product together to enable operators, to enable first responders. And I find these matrices here incredibly powerful to really drill down into what is happening with your APIs. If I go back to the overall homepage, I'll talk a little bit here about what we're seeing. Seeing is not very much. Here we go. So what we do see here is a selection of you can go and see recent anomalies, the recent timeline and trends. You can drill back a number of weeks as you look at overall performance of your APIs. The investigate view is what we just saw with those super heat maps, those co-occurrence matrices, which let you debug and diagnose things. Alerts, we talked about how do you go in and specify what alert conditions are relevant to you and how you want to become aware of those alerts. And then collections is something that we added fairly late on the product development cycle when people were beginning to use it in the real world, and we found that customers really wanted to bundle their proxies together or bundle their targets or even bundle developer apps into, maybe this set of 5 developer apps is particularly important to me. Maybe these correspond to my highest value clients, and I want to monitor those separately with a much more sensitive threshold than my general monitoring. And collections is a facility in the product that enables you to do that. So I encourage all existing Apigee Edge customers to go and explore this product. If you're not an Apigee customer today, you can certainly trial the product and play with the monitoring features within that trial. We found really resounding feedback from our customers. As more and APIs move to production and get productionized, we found adoption of this feature across our customer base has actually really surprised us. But we're incredibly gratified that our customers are finding it so useful. So I'm going to come back now. I see a number of questions here. So where's the API monitoring product? The API monitoring product, if you are a customer using the Enterprise Edition of Apigee Edge in public cloud, you'll find the API monitoring product under the Analyze tab is the answer to that. And I recognize as a product manager, it pains me to say that. I don't think Analyze is perhaps the most natural place to find that. I expect the information architecture will change over time as we build more of these operations-focused features. I think that there's good reason possibly to have an actual operations tab to go alongside Analyze and develop and publish. Question here about the on-prem version. Unfortunately, the API monitoring products, this is something which we only offer today in the cloud version, and we don't have a solution for on-prem customers. I apologize for that, but please, if you're an on-prem customer, you may still trial the cloud version and play around with the product there. Report about a broken link. Why wouldn't you use stack driver monitoring? I think that this is a great question. I think that there are a couple of possible answers here. You could totally use stack driver monitoring. We have customers who are doing this today. We have plenty of customers, however, who don't use any of the blue hexagons from the GCP family, and perhaps we don't want to tie our product today to stack driver monitoring because we recognize that not all Apigee SaaS customers are GCP customers today. Stack driver is a great solution. We do use it internally here in Apigee. We use it to probe our own APIs. And again, it has the shortcut, the probing approach has the shortcomings that we discussed. Can I create custom reports? Absolutely. And there are links throughout the product, the API monitoring product, to create custom reports from alert definitions you set up, from views you find and investigate. One click will take you through to a pre-populated custom report definition. Question about the on-prem setup. I don't have an ETA to share today, I'm afraid. And then a question about what is meant by synthetic monitoring tools. So I covered this maybe not in enough detail at the top of the preso, but when I say synthetic monitoring tools, I'm talking really about probing or black box monitoring. And a common thing here, common thing here is to set up some process, perhaps it's globally or regionally distributed, some process which essentially makes an API call periodically, maybe once a minute, once every 5 seconds, whatever it may be, and then reports back on what happens. I'll cover it again. This approach, I think, is valuable in itself. Many folks are doing this. Luke at Urban Science is doing this as one of the tools in his kit bag. But it has a few shortcomings when it comes to, on the diagnostic side, correlating the results that you see from your monitoring tool to what's actually happening on the internals. We found customers have to do a lot of flipping between systems, correlating timestamps in various logs and so on. And so certainly makes the diagnosis a little trickier. I think that the other thing where synthetic monitoring gets difficult is really detecting those error conditions which may mean a lot to you as a business, but maybe are not easy to detect from outside. The canonical example there is, how do you make sure that, if you have a tiny error rate, an overall error rate in your system, your probers are probably detecting this is fine, everything's normal, but in fact, maybe 100% of that error rate is being delivered to your highest value client or your highest value developer. And again, you can You can try and get ahead of this by creating lots of different probers, maybe one for each API key you really value, or one for each particular proxy, and then have that really fine-grained monitoring. But it quickly becomes very, very unwieldy. And so I think that Apigee's approach, because of our unique position architecturally, we're actually directly in the traffic path of the API. That gives us the ability to detect many error conditions that would be very, very difficult to do with synthetic or with black box monitoring. And not only that, but we have a lot of information that we can provide to you when you click through on that to look at diagnosing and solving the problem. We can provide a lot more information about the internals of the API. Is it the back-end target that's failing? Is it the gateway that's failing? What's the precise fault code? We have a level of detail on the Edge platform which goes beyond status codes. A 401 could have many internal causes. We can break that out for you in our monitoring product, whereas synthetic or black box monitoring product wouldn't be able to do that. Luke, thank you so much for joining me. I had a great time chatting to you. And to the audience, I hope this has been useful. Please keep following up with questions. And thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you both, Isaac and Luke. So our next webcast is going to be on March 14th on monetization of APIs, which would be the next step once you've monitored and improved your APIs. Next step would be monetizing them. And also I want to point out that Google Next, which is one of the biggest IT conferences, is coming up on April 9th or 11th. So be sure to register for that. Apigee will be there. Our team will be there. You can ask questions in person. With that being said, I'd also like to point out that we have some resources on monitoring documentation as well as data sheet you can see in your resources list. Just be sure to refresh your view so that you have the latest list. With that being said, we'd like to thank all of you for your time today. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Luke. All of you have a great time.